Hello, my name is Addie Fowler, and I'm with the RVCC Tutoring Center located at Raritan Valley Community College in North Branch, New Jersey. Today I'll be going over the English Weekly Review Session 2, which is a continuation on parts of speech and basic grammar. So in case you haven't visited us, we're the Tutoring Center at Raritan Valley Community College, like I said, located in North Branch, New Jersey. To make an appointment with us, you can click this link, which is raritanval.academia.net. That's our scheduling service, and follow the prompts to be able to make an appointment. Or you can also call 908-526-1200 at the extension of 8549 or 8393. We love appointments, we love walk-ins. Whatever you need help with, we'll definitely find a way to get you the help you need. So today we'll be reviewing the parts of speech, which was covered in English Weekly Review Session Part 1, which is also available on YouTube. We'll be going over the rest of the parts of speech we did last time, which are adverbs, prepositions, conjunctions, articles, and basic grammar. And last of all, we'll test your knowledge on everything that we went over in Part 2. So going back to our parts of speech, the best way to view the parts of speech is as a Lego set. Each of your parts of speech, which are adverbs, prepositions, articles, conjunctions, nouns, pronouns, verbs, and then there's one other one that I'm forgetting. All of these are your blocks that build your Lego set at the end. It helps you to understand language and to be able to properly convey your feelings and what you want to express in a sentence. So let's move on to adverbs. Now, adverbs are a little complicated, but they're really cool. They like to describe verbs, adjectives, and even other adverbs. So they really clarify things for a reader when you include them in a sentence. So there are 6 types of adverbs, and I have a little bit of examples right over here if you want to take a look at that little chart. Very helpful. So first we have manner adverbs. They show us how things happen. Place adverbs. They show us where things occur. Time adverbs, they tell us when something happens. Frequency adverbs tell how often things happen. And degree adverbs will also it tells you to what extent something is happening. The sneaky thing about them is they can totally change the tone and the voice of the sentence depending on where you put them. And they also have to be describing an adverb, adjective, or verb. They can't be describing a noun, otherwise, that's an adjective. Moving on to prepositions, they're really cool. I love prepositions. They're actually my favorite part of speech because there's so many of them, first of all. But second of all, they're always the easiest to identify in a sentence. So one thing I didn't include here is prepositions are part of a preposition phrase, is what it's called. So a preposition phrase is when you have a preposition starts it, usually. So let's say above, and then you have an object of your preposition phrase. So let's say above the pool. So pool would be the object. So prepositions are cool because it's like you have a little sentence within the sentence. They are also a description thing, but they have specific reasons that you use those as well. You have time prepositions, which reveal when something happens. Place prepositions, they tell you where things occur. Direction prepositions, they tell you the direction of way things occur, so the movements is what I have here. There are manner prepositions, which detail how stuff gets done, and agent or instrument prepositions, which show who or what is behind an action. So prepositions, I said here, team up with nouns or pronouns. So this is what makes them different than adverbs. They're nouns or pronouns to form duos, which are preposition phrases. Those can act as adjective or adverbs. So the phrase itself is made up of a noun and a preposition, and possibly a pronoun, and it acts as an adjective or an adverb. We'll see this in the practice section, and I'll make sure to point it out to you when we get there. If you want a little bit more practice on the types of prepositions, this video that's on YouTube called The Preposition Song is great. It'll make sure you definitely memorize as many prepositions as possible, which definitely eases up your writing a little bit. Next we have conjunctions. Conjunctions are connectors. So that's the way I always remember it. Conjunction starts with a C, connector starts with a C. There are 3 types of conjunctions we can have, although the image I found only had 2. That's because those are the 2 important ones, the ones you'll probably use most in academic writing. So you have coordinating conjunctions. These connect words, phrases, or clauses of equal rank. So again, coordinate equals connect. They both start with a C. You have subordinating conjunctions, which connect a dependent clause to an independent clause. So a dependent clause is a part of a sentence, a phrase of a sentence, that needs the other part of the sentence for it to be understood. And an independent clause is something that can stand on its own. So, for instance, an independent clause would be, I went to go get my dog. But a dependent part of that could be, I went to go get my dog and to groom my cat. If you just said, and to groom my cat, it wouldn't really make sense, which is why we need the subordinating conjunction or the coordinating, as the example I used, to connect those two phrases together. It's very important to connect your independent and your dependent clauses. Last, we have correlative conjunctions. They work in pairs to coordinate words or groups of words. So this is where you have either or, neither nor, both and, your two-word conjunctions, as I like to call them. So the use of correct conjunctions is very important because it improves the flow of your writing and it makes it easier for the reader to understand your thoughts and your ideas. It's that connection between your independent clause and your dependent clause. So now we'll move on to our last part of speech, which is articles. An article is not a news clipping or a part of a magazine only. There's also an English grammar component of articles. So there are two types of articles. There are these three special words. This is all you need to know for articles: a, an, and the. So the is a definitive article, the only definitive article in English, and it's used when you're referring to a specific particular noun. Indefinite articles, a or an, are used before nouns when the identity of the noun isn't known. So, a dog, we don't know what dog, a dog, but the dog, we know it's a dog. So, a dog is just some random dog. The dog clarifies to our specific situation. That's the main difference between definite and indefinite articles. So, it makes sense if you take the time and actually think about it. Indefinite, we don't know. Definite, we do know. So articles are used to indicate whether a noun refers to something specific or not, which is very important when you're writing sentences, especially for articles, and not for articles, for academia, because in academia you want to be sure of what you're saying. You should not really be using a or an as a starting word for your sentence. The should most of the time be your starting word for a sentence. Next, we'll move on to more of our basic grammar. So we're going to do two parts for our basic grammar today. First, we're going to do types of sentences, and then we'll do capitalization to finish us off. So there are four types of sentences in the English language, which are declarative sentences, interrogative sentences, imperative sentences, and exclamatory sentences. Declarative sentences, which is your most common one, makes a statement about a subject, and it usually ends with a period. Interrogative sentences, you're asking a question. You're interrogating someone as to how something happened. Imperative is a command or a request. It's not often a request. Usually an imperative sentence is a command. Turn off the light, as they use in this example. I'm telling you what to do. So if you're being told what to do, that's an imperative sentence. They're very similar to declarative sentences, but don't worry, don't mess them up. And then your last type of sentence is an exclamatory sentence. You're exclaiming something surprising or fearful is happening in your life. So it's often something you're exclaiming. Moving on to capitalization, I found this nifty little mnemonic to help you guys if you struggle with this, but it's called MINCE. So you always capitalize months, the letter I, names, titles, and starts of sentences. So let's go through each of these. The first word of every sentence should be capitalized no matter what. Exclamatory, interrogative, imperative, exclamatory. It should always be capitalized because it's a form, capitalization in grammar is a form of respect. So that's the important part to keep in mind about capitalization. Next are proper nouns. This is where things get a little iffy, so I'm going to clarify it for you. So they're the names of specific people, places, organizations, a lot of times nouns. So yeah, nouns, it says in the name, which is a person, place, thing, or idea. So there's a lot of controversial things, but These are some of the proper nouns you won't see a lot of the time capitalized that should be capitalized. If you're writing something from a religious perspective, you always capitalize anything in reference to God or into any religious texting because it is a sign of respect, like I said. So you're respecting the religion that you're writing about. The president should always be capitalized. They tried to change it a few years back and say it shouldn't be capitalized. No matter what, president should always be capitalized. That's a very important thing. And like we'll get down to titles, usually if there's a title before something, officer, professor, doctor, you always capitalize that because again, they're forms of respect. So the next one is the pronoun I should always be capitalized. You need to show respect to yourself. If you're showing respect to others, you deserve the same respect that you're giving them. Next, we're going to go on to those titles, which I just referenced a little bit ago. If you're addressing somebody who has usually gone to school for this sort of title that they have, you should be capitalizing them if you say it with their name. So if we had Dr. Smith, Professor Gaffney, Officer Lewis, you capitalize them. But if you say the officer, the professor, the doctor, you don't have to capitalize it. It's just when it's used with a name. And then lastly, this one I hope you know, but if not, we're going to clear out the error. Days, months, holidays should always be capitalized. That is in respect of the person who invented the calendar, and it's also because they're just common proper nouns that we use. Usually, like we said, proper nouns should be capitalized, so it would make sense why days, months, holidays should be capitalized as well. So next, we're going to start testing your knowledge on everything that we went over in this PowerPoint. So first, I'm going to give you some practice with adverbs. So identify the adverbs in the following sentences and determine the types of adverbs. I'll give you guys 10 seconds. So when it gets to 12:55. Did you figure out the adverbs and the types of adverbs? Let's go over it. In the first sentence, beautifully is your adverb, so it's an adverb of manner. Usually is your adverb in the second sentence, an adverb of frequency. In question number 3, it is tomorrow, which is an adverb of time. It's telling the time. In he lives nearby is your adverb of place. And in number 5, extremely is your adverb because it's an adverb of degree. Next, we're going to move on to practice with prepositions. So try to see if you can identify the prepositions, the types of prepositions, and bonus points if you're able to identify the phrase, which I'll go over in about 10 seconds. So you have until 13:12. Were you able to figure out the prepositions, the type of prepositions, and the preposition phrases in the sentences? Let's go over it. In the first sentence, your preposition is to. It's directional, and your phrase is to the park. Number 2, after is your preposition. It's telling you the time. Your phrase would be after the meeting. The third sentence, with is your preposition, and with surprise would be your phrase, and it's a manner preposition. In the fourth sentence, on is your preposition, on the table is your phrase, and it indicates place. And in your fifth example, by is your preposition, and John is your object of the preposition, so your phrase would be by John, and it's a preposition of agent. So let's move on to conjunctions. In these 3 sentences, try to find the conjunctions and determine the types of them. So I'll give you until 14:18. Let's go over these answers. So in question 1, either or is your conjunction, and it's a correlative conjunction. And is your coordinating conjunction in example 2. And because is your subordinating conjunction in question 3. Now let's do some practice with your articles. See if you can find the articles and determine the types of articles in the sentence. Remember, articles are a, an, and the. So I'll give you until 1455. Were you able to figure out the articles in the following sentences? Let's go over it. In the first sentence, indefinite article a is used before lion because the exact lion to the speaker saw is not known. In the second sentence, the is the definitive article and is pointing toward the specific dog that bit me. Now let's go over practice with types of sentences. In these sentences, try to determine what are the types of sentences. You have until 1532. I gave you some extra time because it took a little bit for me to say that. So let's go over these types of sentences. What time is it is an interrogative sentence. It's a question. Close the door is a command or a request, so it's an imperative sentence. And question 3, it's exclamatory because you're making an exclamation about something you're excited about. And in number 4, it's declarative because you're stating a fact. Let's go on to practicing capitalization. I'll give you until 1615 to answer these questions. So let's go over the answers to these questions. In the first sentence, my should be capitalized because it's the first word in the sentence. In the second sentence, Monday, December, and Christmas should be capitalized because these are months, days of the week, and a holiday. In the third sentence, Diane, Congress, and President should be capitalized. This mixes your title and your proper noun capitalization. And the fourth sentence, I, should be capitalized because if we're showing respect to others through capitalization, then we should show ourselves respect through capitalization. And in the last sentence, Dr. Perkins should be capitalized because it's the specific title in correlation with the person's name. Thank you very much for watching today's weekly review session 2 for English completely all the way through. Next week, we will be covering tips and tricks for reading comprehension. If you're able to make it, we are in person for the weekly review sessions from 1 to 2:20, and it will be either with my coworker Jill or with me, and it's at the Tutoring Center at Raritan Valley Community College on the 3rd floor of the Bateman Center. Next week, we'll be covering tips and tricks for reading comprehension. So it's going to be a lot of reading articles and trying to tell what happened in those articles. Hoping you the best, and I hope you learned something from this lesson today, my grammar pals. I'll see you next time.